The real world range test on the BOSCH Gen 4 with a 625 watt battery on the Trek rail. It could be the king of the mountain. Let's go check it out. Whoa! Woo-hoo-hoo! Raiders, welcome back to Sam's Bikes, where you know we only talk e-bikes, and today it's the real world range test on the Trek rail with the BOSCH Gen 4 and a 625 watt battery. I'm lucky enough to have the Trek rail for 5 days because my mate Iago lent me his bike. Absolute legend. And what would a sane person do if he had a bike for 5 days? We'd ride it every day and do every test he possibly could. And today it's the range test. It's going to be a really long day in the saddle, but riders, I am a geek and I do find this stuff really interesting. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really means a lot. And you wouldn't know that I've done a fair few of these range tests. In the last couple of months, I've done the Levo SL, I've done the Kenevo SL with the Shimano EP8 and a 630 watt battery. And I've also done the Levo Gen 3 with a Bros 700 watt battery. And for me, I've got to do this one because I've actually been riding this. This is my third ride, and I've been really impressed with the range. So what we're gonna do is we're going to my local trail. We're rolling Schwalbe tires, Magic Mary, Big Betty, like all the setups with all the testing. Tires are really important. And a massive shout out to Schwalbe, the long-term sponsor at Sam's Bikes. And we're gonna be rolling in tour mode, which in my opinion gives you that average ride. Yeah, you could do it in eco and get loads more range, or you could do it in turbo and just smash up and down. And range is one of those things that's a little bit misunderstood. So I really like to do these tests back to back on all the different bikes, so I can give you riders like a baseline of what we should be expecting from all the motors and batteries. It's going to be a long day in the saddle, super hot, it's like 35 degrees. But anyway, riders, I'm going to get out there and get it done, so let's go. All right, we just got to Pardo. We used 7% of the BOSCH Gen 3. That's pretty impressive. It's the smallest battery out of the Shimano EP8 with the 600 and the Bros with the 700. And this used the least amount of power to get here. All right, so that's about an hour on the bike. Got a little jump. Let's have a little chat about the Trek rail. Riders, if you're not subscribed to the channel, do so. I'll be doing like, I wouldn't say a full review, but close enough to it. It's one of those bikes you get on and you feel pretty at home straight away. Like, I really enjoyed the first shakedown ride. Felt pretty confident on it. It's got basic suspension, so really easy to set up. And embarrassingly so, I haven't really had much time on a BOSCH Gen 3 and I'm really, really impressed. Okay, so we've used 25% of the battery. We've done 335 meters of vertical climbing. I've burnt around 800 calories, average heart rate around 130 and 25 Ks. So we could hit 100. I reckon we're gonna do around 85. Yeah, it seems really good so far. Let's crack on. Yeah, it definitely climbs on par with the Brosy. You can climb in high cadence or low cadence. It doesn't really matter. And it kind of saves your cassettes and changing under load because you can just power through in one gear. Oh dear, that's halfway. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's about 35 degrees out here. It's like I'm Aussie, used to the weather. So we've done 40 Ks. We used 50% of the battery. We've climbed around 600 meters, just under. Burnt around 1,400 calories. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm suffering pretty bad. I'm drinking lots of water and eating some snacks along the way. But I'm suffering. You know, the last couple of weeks with the camper van, been super busy with the new Kenevo, lots of videos. I haven't been training that much, so this is a pretty good test. So this is about the 4th time we've done the downhill Panama. It's one of my faves. And you can probably hear that rattle. I'd say it's pretty similar to the Shimano. Definitely the Bros wins for a silent motor when you're riding it and when you're going downhill and uphill. It's not a deal breaker though. For me, a deal breaker is when you don't know where the sound's coming from. You know, I kind of dread these days, the range test days, because they're such long days on the saddle. But I do enjoy it, you know, like it's pretty interesting to get all the data, like just to have that up my sleeve and be able to talk about the pros and cons of each range, each motor. I think it's pretty, well, I find it interesting, but I am a glorified bike geek. And you know, I've got a question for everyone out there. You know, like I do live in a warmer climate. I haven't noticed too much differences between temperatures. You know, being a photographer, I do notice, and a paparazzi back in the day in London, on cold days, I'd probably get, I don't know, 30% less charge out of a camera. So what are people noticing in the colder climates on range testing? Are they getting a lot less? That's something that would be interesting for me. And I just noticed we've been on pretty flat terrain and we were at 42% and it's just gone to 37%. Maybe the BOSCH is not as linear as the Bros. Okay, so we just hit 30% left of the battery. We've done 57 Ks. And the display's gone orange for some reason, I don't know. It seems a little bit early for it to change colors, but I don't feel any sort of power difference. And now we have 20% left. And if you're thinking of getting the Trek Rail 5 with the 500 watt battery, this is more or less what you would get. We've done around 63 kilometers, around 1,000 meters of vertical climbing. We've been in the saddle 3.5 hours and burnt around 2,300 calories. All right, so we just hit 15% and now the battery indicator's gone red. But again, I don't feel any sort of decrease in power. All right, so we're back right next to my house, which is right next to Plaza Mayor. Check this out, riders. This is Plaza Mayor in the center of Madrid. And it's kind of cool to see tourists. Madrid's kind of getting back to normal. Okay, so we left Pardo, my local, with 20% battery. We arrived there with 7%. And to come back here, we used 12%. So it's almost double. So if I was riding somewhere with 10%, I'd want to leave 20% to get back home just to be on the safe side. And we have 8% left on the battery. So the test isn't over yet. And like any sane person, I'm gonna look for the steepest hill in my area and ride up it and down it, up it and down it until we run out of battery, because that's what we have to do. All right, so this is the nasty hill and we have hit 6% now. And I am noticing just a little bit of power restriction. Still got a fair bit of power though. Now we're at 2%. I'm gonna have to go back and look at all my notes. I can't remember that well, but I think this is the best performing motor with 2% left. Most of them at 5% or 3% are giving almost nothing. There it goes, 1% and it stopped. We're done. Okay, riders, that was a bloody long day in the saddle, but totally worth it, super interesting. And let's have a look at the statistics. So we did 77.46 kilometers. We burnt 2,429 calories. We climbed 1,541 meters, and it was 4 hours and 23 minutes of total moving time. The average speed 17.6 and my average heart rate 136. So definitely not an easy ride. And we have a new king of the mountain. The BOSCH Gen 4 with a 625 has got the smallest battery. We got the most vertical climbing. Check it out. With the Levo SL with a 320 getting a respectable 964. The Shimano EP8 with a 630 got 1,171. And the Bros got 1,490 with a 700 watt battery. And the BOSCH Gen 4 got a very impressive 1,541 with the smallest battery in the full powered tests. But it's not as cut and dry as that. Let's look at the total distance covered. Shimano EP8 62.8, BOSCH Gen 4 77.4, and the Levo Gen 3 with the Bros 78.6. So overall, I was really impressed with the range on the BOSCH, you know, considering it's got the smallest battery out of the full powered e-bikes I've been testing. And when we're talking about how linear the BOSCH uses the power, it doesn't use it as well as the Bros, but it's better than the Shimano. So like, I reckon if you use 10% power, like going to the riding destination, I would leave 15 to 20% power in reserve to get back. That's acceptable, and I would like to see it more linear in the future, because if you think about it, it's pretty dangerous. We can go pretty far with these bikes, and if you run out of power, you can be stranded in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, I think that should be worked on. But one thing's for sure, if you're looking at buying an e-bike for range in 2021, it's got to be the BOSCH or the Bros. And it leaves me scratching my head a little bit with the Shimano, because you know, you're getting a fair amount less in range out of that motor, and it's the newest motor out of the bunch. Anyway, riders, I hope you enjoyed this Geek of the Week sort of range test. I enjoyed it. It was pretty tiring. And I'm gonna say I'm really sorry I didn't put out 2 videos in the last couple of weeks. I've been really tired. I've been a bit run down, and you know, like I've done like 170 videos in the last 2 years, and it's definitely taken a toll. So, but they will be more coming. We've got loads coming up. We've got Rob Rides e-talk this week, absolute legend, don't miss that. We've also got Marshall Mullen coming on talking about the Kenevo SL and my 7-day findings on the Trek Rail. So all coming up. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you share it with like-minded people. It really does mean a lot. And riders, stay safe out there, and I'm gonna see you next week.